Welcome back to another video. This is Akhil. These videos are documenting my journey towards finding the meaning of the universe. And in this video, we're going to be talking about how I quit real estate. Really, I didn't quit. I kind of moved more of my attention otherwise, but for the thumbnail, I guess, quitting real estate, for the quick intro. We're going to be talking about, what I'm doing now, all of that, and what's kind of going on in real estate too. And kind of like a corollary, a little extra bit maybe at the end, we'll talk about it for 5-10 minutes about the part 2 of the female question that actually, between the last video and now, I, learned some things, and I'd like to talk about that in the end of the video. It's not none of the logical insights that I made in that video have changed at all, but it's just, some real world examples that I actually lived through myself. And it'll just be cool. So those 3 topics we're going to talk about. Let's get into it. All right, so first, the most important topic is me quitting real estate. I know I usually start my videos with the mission statement, but now my mission statement has actually changed. I didn't change the things in the back, but basically, I had a long conversation with ChatGPT, and I realized that there is no logic in me continuing real estate, and here's why. So basically, the logic that I originally had was I'd continue real estate for another year, and that way, I can test some things with advertising and some stuff with Zillow ads, and then, kind of build a base of people that may work with me in the future, so I don't have to do any lead gen anymore. And they can just work with me like referral repeat, so I can just have money, coming in kind of consistently every year for my next venture. But I thought about it a little bit more with ChatGPT. And obviously, ChatGPT doesn't have any emotional investment or time investment into real estate. So it was able to give me a very logical perspective into should I be continuing in real estate or not. And basically, the conclusion that I came to with ChatGPT's help is that there's no logic in continuing real estate. Obviously, yes, the skill of advertising does transfer to other ventures. But at the end of the day, fundamentally, real estate is a very truncated outcome distribution path in the sense that, okay, I know I just said a lot of words. So basically, real estate fundamentally is linked to your time, right? Like it's not really a business. You're just a salesperson. You're going around showing houses, doing leases, and it's fundamentally linked to your time. Like I can't be in like Mexico or something and show houses. I have to be there, present, showing houses. Like it's fundamentally a one-on-one business. No matter how big of an agent you get, you're always going to be needed personally showing clients, personally doing this stuff with clients, doing all that. It's just going to be you're personally always investing your own time into being a real estate agent. It's not going to be something where you can, kind of just offload the work to somebody else. You can have an assistant to help with admin stuff, but really at the end of the day, it's not a business. You're just a salesperson. So basically, after realizing this, there's basically no point. If my goal itself is to build a business and to find the meaning, there'd be no point in me spending any more time in real estate. It was a very good 2.5 to 3 years. I learned quite a bit about sales, in one-to-one communication and advertising. But at this point, me continuing on that path will get me nowhere. It's not going to get me to my end goal. So I have to switch. So at that point, it took a couple days. I was kind of figuring out, discussing with ChatGPT, okay, what am I going to do next? How am I going to do it? And what specifically, what do I actually want from the next business? Or next venture that I do. So I really thought about this a decent amount. And I came to the conclusion that the thing I like doing, I couldn't care about less about what I like, but I think the most logical thing given my predicament is this. The most logical thing I could do with my time is this. So obviously I want to have a company. Obviously I want it to be something that is in some way it has to be directionally closer to the meaning than real estate. Like what I mean by that is this. Obviously my goal is to understand the nature of the universe. Okay, we've established that in multiple other videos prior. But fundamentally from a basic perspective, that means you have to increase understanding of the world. Okay. If I'm just sitting down as a real estate agent, obviously that is no way going to help me. But when I was 18, I didn't know what to do. So directionally, I was like, okay, well, I want to own a business at some point. The thing that I can think of that's like directionally correct is I'll just get into real estate. It's better than college, better than trading, it's better than all other random shit. So let's just do that. So then I chose that choice. But now that I have a better framework of what I'm doing, and I actually have a better understanding and better outlook of what real estate is and what it means to be a real estate agent, I'm able to now take that information and choose the next path. So the next thing that I think will be the most directionally correct to my objective is this. If I want to understand the nature, if anyone wants to understand the nature of the universe, fundamentally understanding is predicated on expansion of economic activity, right? And here's what I mean. The light bulb was invented by Thomas Edison. Well, technically speaking, there was a couple people that invented it at the same time, but Thomas Edison was the one who actually was able to bring it to scale and supply, right? Right. But Thomas Edison would not have been able to invent the light bulb in the Stone Age. It physically would be impossible. There were necessary tools, requirements, or anything like that for that to exist. Correct? Correct. So most inventions are simply not because of almost everything in history and in life is almost never because of the individual. It's about the collective situation. And the light bulb would have been invented regardless if Thomas Edison was ever there, because the problem simply needed solving. We needed light artificially that did not rely upon the sun in an indoor environment. So the problem would have been solved eventually, but Thomas Edison happened to be the guy to solve it. Maybe you could argue that, okay, because he existed, we fast forwarded time a little bit, but that's basically arguable. At the end of the day, society ends up finding the next biggest problem, and as a whole, talent comes together and solves the problem. That's what I fundamentally believe. So, what does it even have to do with what I'm saying, and why am I even bringing up this point? Well, my goal, the thing that relates most to finding the meaning, other than actually exploring the universe, the thing that's before that is making the pie bigger. By that I mean making the world a more productive place. And you might be asking, like, what the heck am I saying by doing what I'm saying? But what I'm saying is this. So the point of the company is, oh shit, I kind of fucked this up. Okay, but wait. So let's take a step back again. So obviously, like I said, I'm going into a new venture. What am I going to do? What am I going to sell? I'm going to sell a service to small businesses to make them more productive. It's going to be a simple lead follow-up service. Okay? I'll get into exactly what I'm doing in just a second. But here's the nth degree, okay, of what I'm saying. You might be like, what the heck is going on? What is he saying? Okay. So like I said, the nth degree is this. If you want to understand the nature of the universe, you have to increase the scope and scale of productivity. You make the world more productive, naturally, humans are going to have bigger problems. They're going to naturally need to understand to solve them, so they're going to dedicate resources to understanding, then solving the problem, then creating economic activity. That logical correlation still makes sense. If I'm not like losing everybody. When society gets bigger and has more understanding and more resources, when a society has more resources, they'll direct it to understanding more things, which will then create more economic activity. So the most important fundamental basis of that is that you are making people more productive. Does that make sense? So the company fundamentally is going to be based on the principle, the mission statement is to make the world, to expand the scope and scale of productivity. Because if you make people more productive, naturally, as a result, there's more economic activity, which naturally means, as a result, there's more, more resources to allocate towards understanding new problems. You see that right there? I just did a Kazuma. I just did a nice loop-de-loop to understanding the nature of the universe. So, directionally, right, if you take a direction of, okay, what can I do objectively to help understand, if I dedicate, okay, what mission can I dedicate my life towards? And expanding the scope and scale of productivity is a mission I could dedicate my life towards. Because if you take productivity to the nth degree, it'll also correlate with understanding to the nth degree. So if you take productivity to the highest potential, you also take understanding to the highest potential, which means you automatically find the meaning because productivity exists at that highest degree. See, you got to see that genius logic train right there. So what the heck does that even mean in a practical lens? That's great in a mission statement. Okay, that theoretically makes sense, Akhil, but what do you mean? Okay, here's what I mean. So right now, we're going to stick with one avatar. We're going to make one person more productive, which is a small business right now. And that is, basically, I want to use something that I already have skills in. Well, it just happens to be that way, but it can't be something that's obviously overly complicated because the nth degree of productivity is really just like AI and stuff like that. But what I can do right now is this. One avatar, one problem, solve it. So, solve it. I think the clap may have gotten in the way. Solve it. Solve one problem for one avatar. Right now, I've isolated that I believe pretty strongly that there is a problem that med spas get a ton of leads. Right, med spa. So if you don't know what a med spa is, they basically do mainly targeted towards women. They do like beautification shit, like injections and shit to make them more beautiful, right? So like all the shit, like injections and fat removal or whatever bullshit, all that stuff. That's what med spas do. So med spas obviously get tons of leads from Instagram, Facebook ads, all this shit. But Med spas most of the time have front desk people who follow up with these leads, right? And the front desk people are obviously going to be busy. They have existing clients. They got people coming in and out. They got shit to do. They got admin work. They got billing. They got insurance. They got all this shit they're doing. And they also have to follow up with new people, which obviously, as you know, will most likely cause these people to, forget about following up. Maybe they don't follow up consistently. Maybe they take a couple days to get back to missed calls. And there is a big opportunity where I can come in for a monthly fee, right? Maybe a few $100 a month. And I just take care of all their new lead follow-ups. Any lead that comes in, but any lead that comes in through online, like a Facebook ad or this or that, I immediately follow up with them and make sure to follow up, like 6 times or 9 times over 7 days. See what I'm saying? And that way they get the highest ROI on their already existing advertising, and the front desk people get less work that they are going to now have to put on their heads. They can focus more on the actual tasks of running the med spa. So this is obviously, that is the one avatar and the one problem I want to solve. A done-for-you follow-up service for med spas. I hope that kind of makes sense. Med spas have, and I actually experienced this myself as a real estate agent. You get leads from all kinds of places. You get leads from, open houses. You meet somebody on the street. You get them from Facebook or whatever. You get this, you get that. And you don't always remember to put them on your CRM or follow up. Like, as one person, it's really hard to maintain all that. Or even as one business, it's hard to maintain every single facet. And if you think about it from a med spa's perspective, a med spa would never have the time and wherewithal to train and hire one person to actually sit down and follow up. Because think about it, like per hour cost, it wouldn't make sense for somebody just to sit down and follow up with new leads unless they're getting like 10,000 new leads, which they're probably not. They're maybe getting like 100 new leads per month, in which case it doesn't make sense to hire a new person, but also the front desk is getting already, they have existing clients and all this shit like I was saying. So it kind of leaves them in a weird spot where it is profitable for me if I come in and I can do it for 10 med spas or something, right? Obviously it'll start with one, but I can do it in theory for multiple med spas at the same, I can be able to call leads as a single service, as a company for as many med spas. But it's just basically I neutralize not neutralize, I make the fee something that everybody can afford, and it's still a return on investment. Like if they only pay $500 or $1,000 per month, but they get an ROI of like 6 to 10K per month because each new lead in a med spa, each injection and shit is worth $200, $300, $400. And if let's just say I generate, because I'm following up with more people, they're gonna have more clients from their same amount of advertising. They don't have to spend any more on advertising. So if I only cost $500 a month and they're getting an extra $6,000 in revenue, then they're never gonna want to stop the follow-up service, if that makes sense. That's the goal, obviously. So now that we've established what the business model is for right now, you might be wondering, okay, how does this relate to productivity? Well, the goal is this: to really isolate and understand one problem for one person, solve it to the best of our abilities, to make sure that they never want to stop buying from us. That's the goal. And then once we can do that for one person, one avatar, and one area, first it's going to be like, maybe the California region, and just really isolate that. Then you can obviously expand further to, other states and all that stuff, and then to other problems, not just med spas, maybe also this and then that, and then maybe you can do other stuff. But at the end of the day, the real thing is you just really want to do one thing right, and then we can always just, once we're so good at doing that one thing, we use the same principles and apply it to, maybe instead of just med spas, we also do like dentists or something, and then maybe at the end of the day, we're just making more people more productive. That's the goal. Increase productivity, and that can be done in many different ways. If it expands big enough, then maybe you can have a new software service or this. Maybe you can also, there's so many ways to cut the cloth of how you can make more people more money and more productivity. Because productivity fundamentally means just more economic output for the same number of more economic output for the same amount of work being done, if that makes sense. So like I'm basically increasing their economic output by following up with the leads that would have forgotten about the service or whatever, but now they're getting extra business that would never have happened. So I'm making them more productive. And by definition, if you continue to do that on a long enough time horizon, you could technically scale this out infinitely to an infinite number of companies. Obviously, I'm talking about the theoretical endpoint. That fundamentally, if the mission of the company means finding the meaning, because you're increasing economic expansion, if that makes sense. You're increasing productivity, which to the nth degree taken is economic expansion, which the nth degree taken is understanding, which the nth degree taken is the meaning of the why we exist. So I know that was a lot of hoops and bounds I had to jump through, but if you can kind of understand the logical chain that I'm going through, if you see what I'm saying. All right, so now you might be wondering, okay, that's great and all. Thank you for the business idea. So how do you expect to make this work? So, like I said, that is still technically an idea. I do believe this is something that people want. And here's why. So I started this thing. So right now it's like, I think September 14th or 13th. Man, I forgot the date. But anyway, it's like mid-September. Okay. So yeah, and I started this, I would say end of last month, like I think exactly August 25th. August 25th is when I started, switching all my focus. I decided, hey, wait, real estate is not a good idea. I think August 24th is the last day I cold call. And August 25th, 2025, obviously, is the day I actually switched to doing this business stuff. So in the last, I'd say it's been about it's almost 3 weeks. It's been like 3 weeks, basically. So in the last like 3 weeks, almost 3 weeks, the first like 3 days was just me figuring out, okay, how am I going to deliver the service? Basically, the service is going to be delivered through a system called Go High Level, which is an automated CRM system where it'll unify. So let's just say I get a med spa to agree. It'll unify all of their leads into one place. So let's just say they get like leads from Facebook ads, missed calls, DMs from Instagram, and from their website. Now that'll all unify it to one place, and basically it'll give me an output. It'll automatically send text message, automatically send an email, and then it'll automatically send me a notification to call the person. And Go High Level does that through automations that I set up. And I ran through all of that on my own with a demo med spa, so I understand how the entire system works. And it took about like 2-3 days to figure out the entire thing. Obviously, at first, like any system, like any protocol or anything, it was a little jarring. But as you got to get used to it, I feel very comfortable with the system now, and I got it. I get how it works. I'm ready for my first client. Okay, first few days are just figuring out that system, understanding how I'm going to deliver. I understand how I deliver. I have the template automations ready so that whenever I get a med spa, I can just plug and play, basically. I can edit. Obviously, there's going to be things that you just don't know until you get your first client. But, I can figure that out as I go. I kind of got the blueprint, and then, we'll figure it out. Once we get the first client, then we can figure all that out. And then after that, I kind of just experimented. After that, the few days was just, obviously getting the LLC set up, doing all this shit, getting the bank account, all that stuff. And then just figuring out how I'm going to get leads. And the script I'm going to use and all of that. So I figured out, okay, so obviously what I was thinking at first was just cold calling. I spent like the first day or two trying to find numbers, scrubbing. I tried a few different methods, different websites, lead generation websites, and I found it really, 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 really incredibly challenging to get high quality, actual owner numbers for cold calling. And then the next day I was like, okay, whatever, let's try asking somebody on Fiverr or Upwork, which is basically like you're basically just paying some Indian guy, in the middle of India or Pakistan or some shit, and he'll scrub the leads for you. I don't know what system they use, but they have their own systems and they scrub the leads. So I paid like 4 or 5 guys. Basically all the 4 or 5 guys gave me shit information, like all duds. One guy gave me 45 numbers, but they were all like literally, they had nothing to do with the med spa. So it was insanely bad. And then one guy gave me, out of like the 100 med spas that I gave him, he only gave me 10 numbers. They happen to be the actual owners. So I was like, okay, I'll send you another 100, give me more. But it just didn't really work out. He gave me like 30 more after that, but then out of the 30, 20 of them were shit. So he only really gave me 5 or 10 good ones. It was like, I couldn't really get it to be like where it actually made sense. It's not like in real estate. You just boom, 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 reverse search the number, reverse search the address, get the contact, bang, call them. It's very simple. But in med spas, it's hard to find the exact owner or the operations manager and then actually get their number. So I pivoted a bit. I tried LinkedIn at first. I tried LinkedIn and I tried to connect with all the med spa owners and operators and operations managers, because the operations managers are the people who, kind of manage the med spa. So I went through all that shit, and then out of connecting with 200 people, I got LinkedIn Premium for like the free trial. And then I connected with like 200 people. And then I also did like, whatever LinkedIn Premium DMs, and then all that. And then I only really got like 7 connections out of it, out of like hundreds of DMs. So I was like, or hundreds of connection requests. So I was like, okay, med spa owners are not really that active on LinkedIn. And I haven't gotten any response on LinkedIn. So I kind of like pivoted also a little bit. And I also noticed there just wasn't that many med spa owners publicly listing their information on LinkedIn. So then I was like, okay, cold calling is gonna be a little bit rough. LinkedIn's also gonna be a little bit rough to get the right leads. Emails, that's also going to be really rough to actually find the right emails and all that shit. And you have to get like 10,000 emails for you to actually get like a decent response rate. So I was like, okay, I pivoted to Instagram. So immediately on Instagram, I realized every single med spa has an Instagram. Like every med spa has an Instagram. So I can DM directly to med spas on Instagram. And the benefit of Instagram is really not that bad about you DMing like crazy. Like I can just create multiple accounts and I can just copy paste, boom, hit out. Like each account I can hit 50 DMs. So if I want to hit out 100 DMs a day, that's only 2 accounts. And I have 6 accounts, so I can hit up to 300 DMs a day. So it's pretty good. And then so I started doing that. I tested a few scripts. I got a couple responses actually from the DMs, and people actually said they were interested. Obviously, those leads didn't really, I kind of messed them up a little bit. One person I forgot to respond to because I didn't have notifications set up. Another person I just ended up responding badly to. I didn't really understand how DMs work. But now I actually have a good idea of what I'm going to do, how I'm going to play it. But it shows that this problem actually exists. Out of maybe like 800 DMs, 2 people responded. So that's pretty good considering DMs, like I'm not even DMing owners directly. I'm actually DMing the med spa, and the med spa is again by front desk people. So out of the 400 med spa or 800 med spas that I did, 2 people responding that were interested is pretty good. That means if I keep it up for another couple weeks, and so right now I'm trying to hit 100 to 200 DMs a day. Today I hit 100. Yesterday I hit 200. The day before that I hit 200. And I'm really trying to target. I was accidentally targeting like 3 days ago nurses as well as med spas, but then I realized nurses are not. Both of the replies I got were from med spas directly, and nurses don't actually do anything regarding the follow-up. So I stopped targeting nurses in the last 2 days. Yesterday I hit 200. Today I hit 100 DMs for just med spas purely. And honestly, it's been so much easier to find med spas. I just look up Google Maps, look it up, and then just go through all of them. Just literally copy paste the name into Google, find the med spa, DM them, and then I'm good to go. I can obviously go over in detail all the DMs and stuff, but it's really not that important. It's just a pretty standard, hey, I love your page. I thought this XYZ post was super cool. We have a lead follow-up service, blah, 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 where we take care of all the leads for you. Would that be of interest? Something like that. It's pretty much what it is. And yeah, so yeah, basically my goal right now is, my assumption is it'll take about 10,000 reach outs to get my first client. And I'm probably somewhere around 1,000, maybe around 1,000. So another 9,000 reach outs will probably be about 30 to 45 days of consistently reaching out. And that's the most important, highest leverage task I can be doing right now, because everything else around that is basically just nonsense. Like I already got everything set up, everything's ready. There's nothing more for me to iterate on the back end. It's just all right now getting leads for this business. And yeah, I also created like with ChatGPT's help, it's very easy with ChatGPT. You just tell it what you want and it just does it for you. It created a literal website. It only took like an hour and a half for me because I wanted to have just like some basic website just so that, when they click on my page, they don't like think I'm like some scam. So it only took like an hour and a half, and then ChatGPT made like a really good website. As like a basic website. Like again, it's not like fucking like, Amazon or some shit, but it's like a good solid landing page. Like if somebody clicks on it, they're gonna be like, okay, hey, this is a legit company. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, I did that. And right now I'm just really focused as much as possible on DMs. I want to start hitting 300 a day because that's basically the most important thing. And also, the secondary DMs, which is like I DM them and then 7 days later, I'm gonna hit them again, stuff like that. But yeah, that's pretty much the situation there for the company. I named the company ADaro, ADaro. And the reason I named it that is because I wanted to start with AD, because my dad's first, when I was a kid, my dad started this lab consumables company. It's called AD Analytical. And it always made me angry that we never could, because it was a good product, but it always made me angry that my dad never really had the time to pursue it, or the, attention, or, even the finances. But it always made me mad that, we never got to figure it out. But now I'm using the same name. I'm going to make sure that AD I wanted to start with. And then the rest of it, I wanted the third letter to be an A too, because if it ever is ranked alphabetically, ADA, then obviously we're going to be high as fuck. Like if it's going to be like, okay, we're going to alphabetically rank companies for whatever reason, mine will be up there at the top because ADA, you feel me? So I know that logic sounds weird, like who cares? But I'm telling you, trust me, sometimes, I don't know what it is, in Google results or whatever, sometimes things are just ranked alphabetically, and I always want to be at the top. Anyway, but yeah, ADA, I wanted something ADA. So then, okay, what is the next? I couldn't come up with anything else for the remaining letters, and I was just saying like random shit, like Adapa. I just tried to come up with random shit, and I was like, oh yeah, Adaro. That actually sounds kind of, So yeah, the logo is basically I used the AD from the logo that my dad had. I literally didn't spend any time on this. It only took like an hour and a half to create all of this shit. It took 1 day to do basically all of the business, like filing the business bullshit, creating the bank account, logo, all that shit took like less than a day. So again, the main thing for me right now is just reaching out. We can talk about, like logo, all that stuff later. Doesn't really matter. But yeah, everything's created and done. But yeah, the main thing for me right now, getting my first client. I think that's going to take about 30 to 45 days because obviously hit rate on, cold DMs, business to business is obviously going to be low. So I'm assuming, about 10,000 reach outs. But I'm basically dedicated for life to doing this. Like I'm done with real estate. So I'm pretty much, I pretty much made my decision there. Even if med spas for whatever reason I find out like I don't know, like 2 months from now, oh, I made 20,000 reach outs, but I guess med spas, like I didn't get a first client, then I just have to alter the offer. I know that med spas definitely need this, so I know that if I alter the offer right, maybe instead change the monthly pricing, just I don't know. There's got to be a way that I can make it so that it's interesting to med spas. And trust me, there's so many leads. Like it's insane how many med spas there actually are. So I guarantee I can get one within either California or fucking any of the surrounding states. There's so many med spas. It's actually insane. Like if I look at just the LA area, there's like 1,000 med spas. So when you talk about SoCal as a whole, like Southern California, there's probably like 5,000 med spas. When you talk about the entirety of California, you're probably talking about like 10,000 plus med spas. And if you're talking about like the western side of the United States, you're probably looking at like 50,000 med spas. So it's like there's a lot of fucking med spas in this country and in especially like in the west part of this country. So I know I can get a lead. I know there's some, even if let's just say for whatever miraculous reason they don't want this exact service, I can alter it slightly to make sure. I know if I stick to it for the next 10 years, this exact thing, I can make it work. Like some productivity thing for either med spas or some corollary there where I can make people more productive, and that's the goal, right? That's just the main goal, is to make people more productive, make businesses more productive. And yeah, okay. And there's obviously a lot I could talk about, but you might be wondering why I specifically chose med spas out of anything. And the reason is because of this. So I originally obviously had the direction. I wanted to make people more productive. And then at that point, I was like, okay, realistically, there's 3 levels that you can hit in terms of productivity. Either you can go for the individual level, like one person, I guess an example of that might be like Adobe, Photoshop or something. That's not really targeted towards businesses or small businesses. It's kind of targeted towards individuals, like individual creators, Photoshop, Premiere, stuff like that. It's kind of targeted towards creators. So you can either target towards like individuals like that to make people like as an individual more productive. You can target towards small businesses, like small to medium-sized businesses, like again, med spas, accounting, mechanics, dentists, stuff like that. Or you can target to like Fortune 500 companies, like big companies. And out of those 3, realistically, the individual, if you're going to target individuals, you need massive scale. So that's not going to work. Okay, if you're going to target small businesses, you don't need to have massive scale. You got to just approach them, and you can still make it profitable, right? So and then big companies, you just need massive scale in order to obviously help out a big company. It's not one person cannot like realistically make a big enough productivity impact on a giant, large corporation like Ford for example. That's never going to happen. You need like a huge team of people working on that. Even like a product or service that they use, right? Like even if it's like an accounting system that they use, you need a huge team of people to work on that consistently, make it actually perfect, and then for them to use it. But small businesses, one person can really drastically, like if you know how to implement it, because small businesses are kind of, they're really like a lot of small businesses, for example, especially med spas or dentists. I originally was looking at dentists, but a lot of these, they're like, the small businesses, they're really, really good dentists. Like the owner is a really good dentist, and they consistently work in their dentist thing, and they're doing dentistry, but they're not very good at like business or being like a very good business person, or they're not really good at making things more productive or following up with leads. They're really good at one thing, but they're not like the entire, because having a good dentistry is not just being a good dentist, it's also all the things around that. So there's a lot of like places for them to, there's a lot of holes where you can fill, and it'll create a lot of value for, a small business, because they may not be perfect at it, but you have experience of doing this. I followed up with thousands of leads, so I understand how this works. I understand how to, how to not follow up too much, but also how to follow up enough so that you're getting maximum ROI. I have because I've been doing it in real estate for so long. I actually have a lot of background in lead follow-up. It's something I know really well. So if I apply that to any business that already has tons of leads, but they're not able to really make use of all that, then it's a perfect match. And at the end of the day, the reason I chose med spa specifically is because I was talking to ChatGPT. Dentists, I could choose dentists too, but the problem is they had this thing called HIPAA compliance, where it's like, because it's like a medical like information, you have to have like a special system in order to be compliant. And med spas in general are high ticket. Each lead is higher ticket compared to a dentist. Dentists can be high ticket too, but because of the compliance and all that other aspects, med spas just makes sense since I'm the one person starting out, med spas make the most sense. If I perfect med spas and I'm able to really maximize it for the entire country, then I can, open up the thing. Okay, maybe we can do mechanics, maybe we can do dentists, maybe we can do chiropractor, whatever. But for right now, one avatar, one problem, one solution. That's the plan. Anyway, that's kind of the reasoning behind the whole what I'm even doing. But yeah, there's a ton of things to talk about, obviously. Since it's been a month and a half, basically, since my last video. I mean, the amount of philosophical mumbo-jumbo that I have written down is quite astounding. But, you know, I could make probably like 10 videos right now, you know, about all kinds of random things that I have thought about. But unfortunately, I don't have the time to make 10 videos, nor the bandwidth. So we're just going to go on to the main things. So obviously, I talked about me switching over to ADaro, the company, and then me making that the main focus in my life. And I'm expecting not to make any money for probably a couple of years like real estate, but I'm expecting to really just, at the end of the day, this is fundamentally, this is scalable and not truncated in outcome distribution. And the reason I say that is because you can kind of tell how successful you're going to be by the biggest person in your industry. The biggest real estate agent is still, like the biggest real estate agent I can think of is probably Aaron Kerman. And he's still running around doing showings. He's still running around doing listings. And he's been in the business for the last 35 years. And I just don't want to be doing that at all. Like, that's just not what I want to be doing. I don't care about houses. I don't care about real estate. I don't care about somebody's problems. Oh, what kind of house they want to buy. It's just not something I care about because it doesn't relate to the meaning. I'll do it because I know that if I understand it, then it'll help me to make my next step, which is why I did it. But is this something I'm going to dedicate my life to? No. But productivity is something, like I said, I can dedicate my life to because it's literally an ancillary goal. Not ancillary, it's a corollary goal to finding the meaning, which is why I'm going to do it. I can do it for the rest of my life. And even if I don't make money, I don't care. I'll still do it because at the end of the day, I want to make the world a more productive place because, like I said, it's directly one-to-one correlation. If the world is more productive, the understanding is, we're getting closer to the understanding of the nature of the universe. So that's the point. But yeah, that's like kind of the whole reason I kind of fucking just quit real estate. All right. So in real estate, I guess we'll kind of open up the topic. Where did we leave off? I know last time we were talking about like ads, lease listings, stuff like that. I have one lease listing right now and I'm kind of just, obviously I'm not doing any new lead gen. I stopped lead gen on August, I think 24th for real estate. So basically I freed up like 99% of my time because almost all my time was just cold calling, scrubbing for cold calling, holding open houses, stuff like that. Stopped doing that completely. And now the only thing that's going on is I have one lease going on, like a lease listing, and that one's just been impossibly complicated to rent. I had an applicant come in, it was about to get finished, and then the last second they backed out. They even paid the money, but then they backed out. They didn't like the landlord. I don't know, some crazy shit. But it's been annoying. But hey, I mean, I had to finish what I started. I shouldn't have even taken that lease to begin with. It's all the way in View Park, or like Inglewood area, which is like an hour. I live in the valley, so it's like an hour. It's an hour drive every way. If I want to go there once and then come back, it's 2 hours total, which is a fucking time suck. It's a $5,000 lease. It's actually less right now. It's because we reduced it. It's a $4,695, $4,700 per month, which the commission I'm going to get after all things said and done is nothing. So I don't even know why I'm doing it, but I already said I would do it for this person, and I'm going to do it, and I'm just never going to touch leases again, basically. And I had a lease listing coming up in Woodland Hills, but the person decided to go with their cousin or something, so as an agent, so whatever. And then I started, when I was doing the ads, this is actually something interesting. I found a successful ad. I started really grinding that ad out, and I made multiple variations, and I posted it with multiple different types, and that ad was actually very successful. It was an off-market property ad. And basically, it was an ad that was using an AI-generated voice with stock footage. Actually, ChatGPT gave me the idea. And it was working really well. It was like off-market properties in LA, blah, 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 in Burbank, West Hills, Sherman Oaks, blah, blah. Click the link below for off-market properties. And I was actually getting a lot of clicks. But again, I can't be spending money on ads and diverting my focus, so I stopped doing that. And either way, even though, like, the thing is with real estate is the cycle time for leads is fucking insane. Like, if I get a lead now, most likely that lead won't buy for another 2 to 5 years, which means the only point in me getting leads is if I plan to be in the business for years and years and years and years and years, which I don't, so there's no point in getting leads. So you see what I'm saying? Oh yeah. The real reason I even brought up this conversation with ChatGPT in the first place, because I realized, I don't know where I put the book. I got $100 million money models from Alex Hormozi, right? I watched the launch or whatever, and I got the pre-ordered book. And then the first thing I do when I got the book was I read it. I read it over like 2 days or 3 days. Just like, whenever I got downtime, I just read it. And I read it the entire, it's not a big book. It's pretty simple to read. But what it taught me was that real estate is the worst fucking money model in the entire planet, because the cycle time for leads, 1, you don't get money up front. 2, you have to spend a ton of money up front to get leads. 3, the leads don't close for years. Like, as in, like, you don't know when they're going to close for years. So it's literally it's possibly the worst industry to be in if you want to make money, which is fine, but it kind of just was enlightening to me. I was like, okay, well, if my goal is to find the meaning, this is not what I want to do, right? So yeah, it was a very good, Money Models is a great book, 100% recommend, 10 out of 10. So yeah, I guess now we can talk about the next topic. Okay, the next topic. And this is going to be a decently long topic, I think, actually. It's only 10 minutes. It's what you guys are all here for. The female question part 2. Okay, so where we left off on the last part. We left off on that me pursuing a female is basically completely useless because they offer no benefits for my objective. I think that's where we left off at. And I 100% agree with that, and that is precisely how we should continue. Anyway, so let's just talk about what the heck, why am I even bringing this up again? Okay, so over the last month and a half, okay, I realized, even though, well, I obviously always knew this, but even though I logically understand something, that does not mean in execution and in practicality it'll always operate that way. And here's why. So, there's a thing called the limbic system override. I coined that term myself. I don't know what the fuck. I took a bunch of terms that I don't really understand, and I put them together, and I called it the limbic system override. So this is what it is, okay? You're probably looking at me like, if you know anything about limbic systems or anything about biology, you're probably looking at me like, this guy's a fucking retard. But anyway, listen, I coined the term because of my understanding of the topic. Okay, my understanding is that the limbic system, and there's really two main things going on in your head. There's the limbic system and the cortex. Your cortex is like kind of like the main computer that's actually like, like all logic is coming from your cortex. And then your limbic system is like the thing that gives you all like, like random desires. Like, oh, go eat food. Oh, drink water. Oh, go take a shit. Oh, that girl's pretty. Go walk up to her. That's like your limbic system, you know what I'm saying? And then your cortex is like, the giant meat computer attached to it. Just like, okay, you're hungry. Okay, let's go over here. Let's figure it out. Oh, you want to do this? Okay, let's go over here, figure it out. That's kind of like the cortex, right? That's basically my understanding. I bet you anybody who's actually like, well versed in the topic probably thinks I'm a fucking idiot. But hey, that's my understanding of what's going on. And like I said, let's get back to the point. Limbic system override. So I've obviously noticed this about myself and about, my entire life. But you can logically realize something and still be overridden by your limbic system. And that is this. You logically, like for example, this is actually perfectly corollary in diets, right? If you want to lose weight and you're ever on a diet, if you never see a cake, your chance of failing is basically zero because you're not exposed to the chance of failure. But if the buttons are pressed or the cake is present, right? It's like, okay, you're at an office party and then they bring in something and you're like, whatever, it's just one time. And then you end up eating the cake and you're like, because you ate the cake, now you're like, I can eat some more of this, I can eat some more of that. And you end up fucking up your shit, right? And then the next day you're like, well, I fucked up yesterday, it's okay, I can fuck up today again. That's the limbic system override creating a different habit loop because it's the limbic system. That's what I call the limbic system override. In all logic, you know that you should not be eating the cake, but your limbic system overrides you to eat the cake, right? And the strongest form of this urge is actually going to be probably in result. You're going to find it in mating. And it's actually the reason that almost all mating is actually illogical in the modern day, because almost all mating does not relate in children, which is that was the original purpose of mating in the first place, is to actually have children, because that's why it's the main override. The main override is have children, because that's the only thing that propagates the species. So, now that we've explained all that, where the hell am I going with this? So here's where I'm going with this. So even though I logically, like I said, I knew not to pursue any females. Basically, I have to avoid all females at all costs. That's basically if you want a synopsis of the female question part 1, it's that if I want to accomplish my goal, I have to avoid all females at all costs. And here's why. Because if I know what is going to happen is this. If I pursue a female and, shit happens, right? Then obviously I'm going to enjoy, like your brain is going to get dopamine from fucking interacting and, doing dumb shit with a female. It's just when you do that shit, what's going to happen? You're going to, you do shit, it's going to release a bunch of dopamine in your fucking brain. Whether you sleep with her or whatever, it's going to induce a bunch of fucking dopamine. Then your body is going to fucking crave that more and more and more. And it's going to become what I like to call the slope. It's a fucking never-ending slope where your just body wants more and more and more until you turn into fucking Dan Bilzerian. Okay, and Daniel Bilzerian, he like basically, if you don't know who he is, he's a sex addict. Okay, he has so much access because he's rich, but because he has so much access, he basically he was always surrounded by beautiful women, and then now it's basically he needs it even to fucking function. Like he needs to sleep with like 10 fucking women a day in order to just simply function and live his life normally. Which is basically like the same thing as an addict, like a fucking heroin addict. You gotta get used to it. You want more, until at some point you have no idea who the fuck you are anymore. And that's the same thing here, except I know the wiring of the brain is that, especially for men, is that it'll convince you like, oh, pursue this one female just this one time, and then after that's over, it's gonna ask for more pursuit, and it's never ending. And I know that, but basically that comes down to this, okay? And I realized this over the last few days. The limbic system override is this, okay? If the buttons are pressed, it doesn't matter how strong your logic is, to a degree, if the buttons are pressed on a long enough time horizon, you will fold. And this is what I mean. You know how they say you can't lead a horse to water? I fucked it up. Whatever. You know how they say you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink? Well, I can guarantee, this is what actually Alex Hormozi says, but I can guarantee if you brought the horse to water, right? Or actually, if you left the horse in the fucking sun, dehydrated it, stabbed it, right? And then put its head like right next to the fucking water, I can guarantee without a doubt that it'd drink the water, right? Which means it doesn't matter how much will it has not to drink the water, it'll drink the water, which means everybody has a breaking point and everyone has buttons that can be pressed. You see what I'm saying? Which means everyone is fallible, is what I'm really saying. It doesn't matter how much logic you have, every human is fallible to a very large degree, which is why every human is also manipulatable, and also why society as a whole is actually very, very tied to biology. And we could keep going on and on and on, but the main point is this. For me personally, I can keep commenting on the universe, but this is the main point, okay? For me, okay, even though I logically knew all this shit, like pursuing a female would obviously get me off the track because it's a distraction. You know, you're gonna think about that lady, you're gonna want to, give her shit, you're gonna want to, pursue the relationship, and then once it's done with her, you're gonna want more and more, and it just never fucking ends. You know what I'm saying? I knew that, which is why I never wanted to start it. But I saw myself falling into the limbic system override. See what I'm saying? And basically, to explain the situation very logically, even though I logically knew not to pursue a certain female, I still, like, my limbic system override kicked in, and then I literally pursued a female, even though I knew that it was logically the worst decision ever. Luckily, nothing ever happened. You know what I'm saying? The female was like, had some boyfriend or some shit, and it was fine. And it was the greatest relief I ever had, because I was like, shit, if she didn't have a boyfriend, and she said okay, I would've been fucked. Because, like, again, I'm starting the fucking slope. And then once you get down that slope, it's a fucking shitty slope, but you're gonna want more and more and more. It's not gonna stop. So, like I said, I got really lucky. But what I'm saying is this. Even though I logically knew not to do it, my limbic system overrided me, and I fucking did it. And I rationalized it after. I was like, it's just this one time. It's not a big deal. Who cares? It's gonna be fine. And then I think it was so easy for me because I'm so used to cold reach outs, right? Like 10,000 doors knocked, that I had no fear. I was like, okay, fuck it. Let's just talk to this girl one time. Who gives a fuck? And I just fucking did it. And it was so stupid. I was like, afterwards, I was like, wait, what am I doing? I'm so lucky. I was like so lucky that she had a boyfriend and shit like that. I was like, oh my God, I should not ever let myself do this again. I'm falling down the fucking slope. I know I sound like a fucking weirdo right now. Like, dude, what is wrong with you? But listen to me. You don't understand. I need to find a meaning, okay? I don't have time for this shit. I don't have time to pursue females. It's stupid. But anyway, like I said, limbic system override. Fucking overrided me, bro. So, what is the solution to the limbic system override? Okay, what is the solution? And here is the solution. The solution primarily lies in this, okay? The only reason I even pursued that female was because she was there in the first place, right? And so basically, the first step is to craft your environment so you're not around that shit, okay? So, first thing is environment. If you have no stimulus, there's no way your body is going to respond. If there is no cake, you can't physically eat the fucking cake. You see what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying? So if there's no females around you, it's going to be very unlikely. Like, for example, I forgot who said this, but there was a married guy who said this. He's like, I'm married and I'm dedicated to my wife and I'm very loyal to my wife. But if you put me in a house for 3 weeks with 10 out of 10 supermodels, odds are I would probably fuck up somewhere, you know? Because at the end of the day, like I said, you're just surrounded by it, you're likely to fuck up. It's just the truth. So one is engineering your surroundings so you're not around distraction. That's number one thing. And then two is habit. If I had 10 years, if for the last 10 years, I had, for example, okay, this is exactly what happened. I had the thought, oh, she looks pretty. Let me go up to her, okay? And then I didn't reject that thought. I should have rejected it immediately. I should have been like, what am I doing? No, focus on what I'm doing in my life. I got shit to do. But no, I let myself get overridden by that. But if for the last 10 years I had always rejected that thought and always aligned myself, then I would have never done it in the first place. Do you see what I'm saying? So habit combined with environment is what creates consistency towards the objective without distraction, if that makes sense. So basically, for me, what does that mean practically? That all that was great theoretically, but what that actually means practically is that you have to make sure your environment, let's just say, whatever the thing you want to remove from your life or you don't want to happen in your life, you have to make sure your environment is crafted in a way so that the stimulus is not there or is as reduced as possible. For me, this female was at the gym, but if I go to the gym early, there's no females. Females don't go to the gym early. Only guys go to the gym early. So that's step number one, obviously. And then number two is just fucking not pursuing and just rejecting the thoughts overall. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to fucking avoid females all the time. It's not physically fucking possible. But what you can do is create the habit, like I said, when I get the thought, oh, pursue. Like I said, because for me, it's like I said, I'm so used to cold reach outs that if the limbic system overrides, it's a very easy conversation. For me, it's like, when I talk to the female, I was like, oh my God, this is like so much easier. Because I'm so used to like talking to business people that are like, if I say the wrong thing, they attack it. Like if I say the wrong thing in real estate, oh, this is in this, and the facts are wrong, they're gonna be like, oh, what the fuck's wrong with you? And they'll stop working with you immediately. But compared to that, like a young female is so easy to talk to. They're fucking stupid, basically. Like, not in a mean way, but just in a realistic way. You know what I'm saying? They don't know anything. I don't know. It's like talking to an overgrown child. I don't know how to explain it. It's just like they don't talk about anything interesting. It's a very easy conversation. I can basically say whatever the fuck I want, and then as long as the person isn't a complete unless they're not interested at all, they'll actually respond. Like surprisingly, they'll still respond. And it'll be a conversation somehow. But obviously, that wouldn't happen in a business scenario. If in a business scenario, you have to be on point. Focus, laser focus. You're not saying anything stupid because you need to get the fucking sale. For a female, bro, it's so fucking easy. But anyway, aside from how easy it is to talk to females, it's like I said, that's a problem because now that I've broken that door and started pursuing it, now my mind, like, every time I see a young female, I'm gonna want to pursue, which I have to break that habit. Obviously, I have, but I have to consistently break that habit over time so that I don't continue doing that. Because like I said, it's fine for one female, it's fine one time. Like luckily she had a boyfriend or whatever. But if I keep doing that over 100 females, I'm gonna get fucked eventually. Someone's somebody's gonna say yes, and then I'm creating that slope. I'm stepping into the what do you call that? Into the shitty cycle of female dopamine, then boom, pursue, because it never fucking ends. You're gonna keep wanting more, and that's just a fucking distraction. It's not gonna get me to finding the meaning or scaling my company. So that's the real thing. And also, another thing that's kind of corollary that I also noticed after talking to this particular female is it's very interesting how all females, they almost always act the same. Like if they don't have this is what I mean. Biology, including for every human, biology supersedes any ideology. Let me repeat that. Biology supersedes any ideology. And that means this. Pretty much every female, no matter whether they're in fucking Uganda or in the middle of Los Angeles or the middle of fucking Miami, it doesn't matter. They almost always act in the same script. Like if you in the same ways. They may have people like to say individualism, but what is an individual really? Like most individuals are running the same ideological script. So the only thing that's really individual about them is their superficial features like their face or their body or their speaking habits. But if you really look at it and actually identify their thoughts and identity and their ideology is pretty much consistent with every other female in the world. So what makes them special? Nothing. That means they aren't unique in any way or not special in any way. So they're a very replaceable entity. Everybody's replaceable to a degree, but those with a strong ideology are less replaceable because it takes time to form a strong ideology because it requires a specific data set. If you see the logic that I'm following. So what I'm saying is that biology, even for me, trumps my ideology, like you just saw. I, Akhil Sharugadas, the one who wants to find the meaning, who has a very strong ideology, who dropped out of high school in order to pursue the meaning, is still pursued by his biology, knowing that he shouldn't be doing this, still has a limbic system override and pursues. Which means every human is quite fallible in very many ways. It's a very revealing and, not groundbreaking, but it's a very revealing thing to me that if you were a smart human or a smart group of humans, and you wanted to control the world, it would be a very, very simple task because as long as you understand biology and how a human normally reacts, it's very obvious what will happen next when you choose to make a big decision. It's very obvious. You see what I'm saying? But anyway, aside from all the weird conspiracy shit, biology, like I said, supersedes ideology. But what I also notice is this. If you're going to choose a partner, okay, just in a general sense, the mind and biology and limbic system will try to convince you that there is something unique or special about a particular person. But in reality, the only unique features about somebody that are actually relevant are not their facial features or body structure. No, it is actually their ideology. That is the only unique and relevant item that a person has to them. That has enough leverage to actually make a difference, if that makes sense. What I mean by that is this. The only real difference between an individual and another individual is the actions that they take on a daily basis, which is predicated on their ideology. Is that not right? So, that means there would be no point. There's basically, this is an age-old saying, don't judge based on appearances or any preconceptions that you may have. But nobody follows it because their biology supersedes. Biology takes uniqueness in appearances, like, breast size or this or that, or bodily features or facial symmetry. But the reality is, the only thing that actually matters in any logical way is ideology, because at the end of the day, ideology dictates actions, which dictates the leverage dictates the outcomes that you have in life. So, all that means is that if you're ever going to choose a partner, it would not be based on any facial features. The idea in my head was, would I talk to this person if they were missing 2 legs and they were fat? Or would I talk to this person if they were in a wheelchair and, they had a shaved head or something? Like, if they were physically unattractive, would I be talking to this person? And the truth of the matter is, for any young female, at least in my perspective, I would not be talking to them at all, because there's nothing that they have. They have no ideological benefits you're talking to me, I'm 21. There's no way in hell a 21-year-old female is going to be even on the same wavelength. They're just not going to comprehend what I'm saying at all. And it just wouldn't even be a conversation, right? The only reason I'd be talking to them is because of biology, because of lust. So that means, what am I really pursuing? I'm just being a slave to my own biology. That's it. So the only actual way for me to logically choose a partner, that means, is for somebody to have a similar ideology as me. And the only way that they're going to have a similar ideology or a similar ideological structure is if I spread my message to the world and somebody, a female or whatever, builds upon that ideology directly to me. And it would never come from me approaching attractive or biologically attractive females, because those types of people are most definite. Like, the odds of me statistically finding a young female who's interested in the exact same topics as I am is basically statistically 0, because of forcing functions primarily. But we can get it. That's a whole other topic. But partner selection should not be predicated on appearances or preconceptions that you may have about somebody's appearances, but based on their ideology. That's basically a long-winded answer of saying, but it's not personality. Those are different things. It's ideology. Ideology and personality. People always say, oh, it has to be about the personality. It doesn't matter about the personality. It matters about the ideology, because the ideology dictates actions, right? So what I mean by that is, it's very easy to see the thing is with ideology, it's very easy to see how it is in practicality, because their external environment and their actions and who they are and what they're doing is so obvious based on their ideology. You see, as in, if this person, let's just say this person in theory is pursuing business or is doing these certain things, you already know that they have a certain ideology because they're doing those actions. So you don't even need, if a person is simply not extraordinary, right, in any way, then you already know their ideology is also not extraordinary in any way, or they're not sticking to their ideology. But either way, it's the same thing. That means if they're not an extraordinary person or making extraordinary actions or decisions, then they are in no way having an extraordinary ideology. So the easiest basis test for my mates, the easiest basis test for mate selection is, is their external environment and actions and results that they're taking, the results that they have, showing of, I think I made this too complicated, but is it showing of extraordinary ideology? And basically, I'll try to simple it down even more. If somebody is rich and successful, it's clear that their ideology is different than somebody who is not. So, if you're going to do mate selection, you must choose somebody who is not. It doesn't necessarily need to be rich and successful, but you have to choose a mate that is who is clearly externally involved because their ideology predicates their decisions and actions. Who is externally involved in things that are of interest to you, like pursuing the meaning of the universe. So basically, it's a long-winded answer of me saying that I'll never find a mate because it's physically impossible because of forcing functions and incentives. It's impossible that a young female would ever, especially an attractive one, would ever pursue understanding over attention and basically just there's no forcing function. You see what I'm saying? Almost all things in life are based on forcing functions. And here's why. It's going to sound like I'm mocking young females, but I'm not. I'm trying to just make a very, 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 very clear point in what I mean. If you talk to anybody above the age of 30, they seem to be significantly more logical. It doesn't matter male or female. They seem to be very much more logical than somebody below that age. Why is that? It's actually not because of anything. It's mainly because of external environmental enforcing functions. Okay? When you're young, you have the ability and freedom to not be that smart and still get by, and not be that logical and be more emotional and still get by. It's especially bad for young females who are attractive because especially when they're young, people pay for them. They don't need to be independent, or they don't need to be very logical in their decision making in order to, get the desired result of, getting what they want. Because, like I said, they're young and attractive. Or if you're just a young guy, you're relying on your parents or you're chilling at college. It's not that big of a deal. There's no forcing function for you to act very logically. See what I'm saying? When people turn 30, for young females, they're not young anymore and they're not as attractive. So they're forced to be more logical. For men, it's pretty much the same thing. They're not able to rely on other people anymore. They have to be more logical. But it's just a forcing function. See what I'm saying? Older people tend to be more logical, so it's a forcing function. So basically what I'm trying to say is that most things in life are actually forcing functions, and nobody's special in any way. It's all just forcing functions and incentives. It is not that a young, attractive female would not think in the same way as it's not that they couldn't think in the same way as I am. It's that there's no forcing function or incentive for them to do so. Does that make sense? That is basically what I'm trying to say. That's basically what I'm trying to say is that if you're gonna, especially for any man, if they're trying to find mate selection, the worst place to look is attractive females, because there is no forcing function for them to be logical in any way. There's no forcing function for them to be, very, very deep in understanding, because they don't need to be. See what I'm saying? So yeah, that's basically the entire perspective there. On the female question part 2, and how does it relate to me? Well, I have to engineer my environment so I don't make that mistake again, obviously, and also make sure my habits are so that I don't pursue. Likely, there's no way that, basically, I cut out 99% of female interaction if I am not the pursuer. See what I'm saying? There's no way a young female is going to pursue a guy. It doesn't work that way, obviously, because they get tons of attention anyway, so they would have no need to. But if obviously, like I said, on a long enough time horizon, if I pursue, it'll end up, like I said, in that slope where I'm wasting time not finding the meaning. So for me, I have to make sure I don't let my limbic system override me, and avoid basically the buttons being pressed. Because like I said, anybody will fold on a long enough time horizon, no matter how logical you are or how disciplined you are. Even a monk, if you take a monk who abstained from anything for the last 15 years, you put him in a strip club, I guarantee if you put him in a strip club for the rest of his life, at some point he will falter. At some point he will look. At some point he will fail. Even if he's a monk. It's just the truth, because every human has buttons, and those buttons can be pressed, right? And when those buttons are pressed at the wrong time, you fold. It's why no matter how strong of a CEO you are, or how smart you are, or how much of a leader you are, you can still be pressed. Those buttons can still be pressed. It's not like it magically disappears no matter even when you have a wife or whatever. It's just like it's an insatiable urge, basically, like food, basically. The thing is with females, it's literally like an unending meal. You can never have enough. It's a black hole. So yeah. I did touch on a few different things here. Obviously, I touched on the whole female thing, and I also touched on one other thing, which is that everyone is equally replaceable. And I really want to hammer this point out: is that it was never really about the individual; it was about the collective. People like to propagate and assume ideas that, oh, you're individual, you're special, you're this, you're that. But it was never about the individual. It was always about the collective understanding of humanity together. An individual on their own is almost 100% a slave to their biology. Every individual is almost always a slave to their biology. And any actions that they take are almost always just reinforcers of their biology. For example, if the reason that I go to the gym, why do I go to the gym consistently? It's because I have gotten a reward for going to the gym in the past. I look great, and then I consistently go to the gym. It's not like, you may think, oh, I'm individually making the decision to go to the gym. No, I have been rewarded in the past for doing so by biology, and that's why I'm continuing to do it. It's the forcing function of being in real estate is it forced me to be more logical rather than emotional, which is why I'm more logical. And it was a forcing function of me to think and think and think to solve my problems because I defined this as the major problem and I need to solve it. So it's a forcing function for me to think further. That's the only reason I think in these ways. So stripping away all the logic, stripping away all of the bullshit that people tell themselves, there is no such thing as the individual. We are all very replaceable. It doesn't matter who you are. Everyone is on a continuum of replaceability. Elon Musk is harder to replace, no question. But if you break down his functions and what he does on a daily basis, everybody's replaceable, including Elon Musk. It may take 3 or 4 people to do the same functions that he does every day, but he's still replaceable. Everybody's replaceable, even me, which means no matter who I am or what it is, everybody is fundamentally, at the end of the day, replaceable. Everybody. There's nothing unique about anybody except superficial facial features and maybe ideology. But even ideology is simply it's simply biology telling you what to do, and then you're basically, ideology is simply a forcing function. It's forced. The ideology is a forcing function of your environment, your surroundings, and your individual thoughts. That is, what is ideology even? Most of ideology actually has to do with your surroundings. If you are surrounded by gangs, your ideology is going to be gangs and gang violence. That is the truth. And you've seen it play out time and time again. And at the end of the day, the truth is, individuals play almost zero. Like, if you zoom out, why do people cheat in a relationship? Why do people do this? Why do people do that? On an individual basis, it looks like, oh, this individual is making a decision. But if you zoom out, you realize that it's all, like, if you look at the actual huge picture, it's just biology the human biology is pretty much universal. We all make pretty much similar decisions when it comes to stimulus and response. It's very similar, almost between cultures, between reality, between anything. Like, a girl in Uganda will make this pretty much a similar decision. Like, for example, this is what I noticed. Females are evolutionarily designed to like attention. That is what a female is designed to do, to accept attention. Because because of evolution, because over time, a female who refused attention from other mates did not fare as well as a female who accepted attention from other mates. But what I noticed is this. All females run the same script. They all like attention, no matter where they are, who they are. It doesn't matter if they're in like fucking Uganda or in the middle of Los Angeles. They all follow the same script, which means there was never an individual. It was always about the collective. You don't, like, as in, like, fundamentally, there is almost no uniqueness. The only uniqueness in a person is basically superficial facial features, body structure, and speaking habits. And then obviously the ideology perspective. But like I said, ideology is almost 100% predicated on your forcing functions and your surroundings. So really, at the end of the day, it was always about the collective as a whole. That's the truth. And I know I repeated that point like 18 times, but if you really understand it, that means everyone fundamentally is replaceable. And that means your life is meaningless in the sense that your life is very replaceable, so you shouldn't put too much weight on it. You should put more weight on actually accomplishing the objectives that you are setting out to do. Knowing that even if you die, somebody else will take your place anyway. That's the best thing ever. That's the biggest freedom. Like, I know if I die, somebody else somewhere, even if they never see me or never correlate with me, will end up having the same logical ideology as me because simply of forcing functions and logical chains and statistics. So yeah, that's the freedom of knowing, freedom of understanding replaceability. And I can keep talking about random ideological frameworks and different understandings that I've gotten over the past month. But the main thing is this. I need to obviously do a bunch of shit. The main actual thing at the end of the day is that a lot of the world is filled with distraction. And that's what I noticed. Like, literally the entire world is just one big giant distraction. Everything from the way that politics is to how men and women are actually together in schools instead of separated. They used to be separated by gender, but by putting it together, you actually distract people way more. Now, instead of people focusing on subject material, they're focusing on getting a mate. Which is, if I went to college, I'd be fucked. Like, if I actually went to college, I'd be so distracted by getting a mate and doing this. The only reason I never pursued a female in the past was because there was never any young females in my life ever. I went to my dad's office gym, I fucking went to work, and that was it. I never even interacted with a young female my age, ever. But then, once I started going to a public gym, then the door opened a little bit. And then the second the door opened, I started pursuing it. Like limbic system override pursued it. Which means, if I was in a college, it'd be insane. My limbic system would override me every 10 seconds. But what I'm saying is this is the main thing. The entire world is filled with fucking distraction when it comes to social media, politics, everything from your biology. Everything is literally built to distract you. And so the main thing is, what is true freedom? True freedom is the pursuit of the ideal, which is, the ideal is focus on a singular task that is highly productive and highly leveraged. The nth degree of freedom is the ability to act without being distracted. That is the true freedom. Because being distracted by biology, being distracted by ideas, being distracted by anything is simply like politics, this, news, that. It's all simply a distraction and is actually eating away at your freedom. What is freedom? Freedom is not just the ability to think freely, but also the ability to act freely, right? And what does that mean? You can't act freely if you're distracted. You can only act truly free if you're 100% disciplined and destroying the distractions and focused on one thing. So basically the point I'm trying to hammer is that the true freedom, you're never going to get there because you're always going to be some level of distraction in your brain because you're biologically built that way. But the goal is to strive to that nth degree of freedom, which is hyper focus on one really productive thing at a time and getting it done, if that makes sense. So yeah, I hope this actually recorded and the audio went through. But yeah, that's basically, that's kind of where I wanted to leave it. But I know I always do this. I make the ending all weird and long. But I think we went over everything. We went over ADaro. I need to change all this because it's all real estate stuff. We went over why I quit real estate. I'm liking this video way better than the last one I filmed. The last one was kind of like all over the place, and it was last week, and I just didn't really I didn't have a fully good grasp on everything I wanted to say. But now I kind of have a good grasp on everything I wanted to say. So we talked about all that. Talked about what's going on in real estate, what's going on in the company right now. Right now, like I said, main thing in the ADaro, the company med spa thing, is just reaching out every single day. I want to hit 200 to 300 DMs per day, which takes fucking forever, but I want to do that. That's the highest leverage activity. The most important thing I need to do is hit those DMs every day, and that's the most important thing. Past that, we talked about, obviously, the female question, my mistake of pursuit. I know I kind of it makes it, when I speak about it, it makes it feel like, oh, all you did is just one thing. What's the big deal? Why are you making such a big deal out of it? But I recognize that it's not just one thing. It's actually me. It's me overriding my ideology, right? So basically what I'm saying is, on a long enough time horizon, it's not about this one thing. I don't give a fuck about this one person or one female. It doesn't even matter to me. But what matters is that the limbic system override just showed me that I am very fallible. Which means if I see another pretty female, my age, consistently, then I will fold again. That's what basically it's creating the habit that on a long enough time horizon, I'm going to make mistakes by allowing that thing in my life when I don't actually particularly care about that thing, but it's going to eat away at my time, my attention, and all this shit. For what purpose? Like, why am I doing that? You see what I'm saying? So again, it's not about this one interaction or one this or one that. No, it's about the habit that I'm creating in my head. You see what I'm saying? And the ideology that I'm breaking. I'm breaking my habits and my discipline for what? The pursuit of something that I know is meaningless? Like, it's pointless sex. That's all I'm pursuing. I'm not trying to have children. I'm not trying to do anything like that. I'm just pursuing pointless lust. So, you see what I'm saying? Like, it's not the one interaction. It's about the habit that's forming and the slope that's going down that I realized that is like, I need to break this and, kind of recalibrate. But anyway, we went over all that. We also went over how everyone's replaceable and, ideology and all that. And yeah, that's pretty much, I think, everything we went over. Limbic system, understanding. Again, I'm sure if you're very detailed and understand all of that stuff and you have a PhD in biology or all that, you're probably going to be like, hey, Akhilish, you kind of got this wrong. And you know what, dude, I'm a high school dropout. So, hey, I'm sure I got quite a bit wrong. But anyway, that's just, again, my understanding of what's going on in the situation based on my environment and situation and the things that I deal with every fucking day. So yeah, it's just the way I see it. And again, like I said, it probably is factually, there's going to be many factual mistakes and errors because I simply don't have the data set of a fucking PhD in biology and neurobiology and fucking chemistry and all this shit. But, nobody can know everything, and these are just the fucking assumptions that I make based off of what I do know. So, yeah, that's basically it. That's the entire video. And yeah, I think what I'm looking forward to again, next few weeks, really grinding out those DMs. I need to expand the scope and scale of productivity. I can't let myself get distracted by females. I'm gonna make sure that's not, because I noticed that, like, even though I logically know that would be, fucking black hole, I'm still fucking like the limbic system override is just that strong. So I just gotta really discipline myself, really, keep the habit, make the environment, destroy the desire over time, starve the desire, and yeah, that's it. Anyway, that's the entire video. There's always so much to talk about, but on to the next video. I think maybe one of these videos I got to talk about labels and predispositions. That's what I did write down, but that's another 30-minute topic in and of itself. And I have another multiple topics that I could be talking about. But I think for this video, we covered pretty much everything from the last thing where I was in real estate to now where I'm in Adaro. I shifted my focus, so that's the main thing. And I covered some of the major things that I learned over that time, ideologically. But yeah, that's the video. Thanks to the meeting, understand the nature of the universe, and yeah, onward.